Welcome to the It's Not the Ref podcast. Today is March the 14th, and we've got Clark, we've got Roland, we got Brian, we got Guido. This is almost a full Auston Matthews episode. We're going to get into that. And of course, we got to talk a little bit about Tom Brady.
Why?
You won't go away. I just won't go away, but we'll get to Tom Brady. Let's kick things off with Auston Matthews and the no holding call. I think it was back on March 10th. Toronto Maple Leafs are playing against the Arizona Coyotes, not in their small little barn yet, but they're playing the game and it's all tied up, and there's a suspect holding call. It's a non-call. Matthew throws up his stick and he starts huffing and puffing. Anyways, Arizona goes and they score a goal and they win an OT. And now it's been, well, was it or was it not holding? Brian?
Yeah. Hey, if you look at the video, he held him, but I still think the ref made a good call, not making the call. So was it a holding call? No, but did he get held? Yeah, but I'm not upset about it. It's part of the game.
So what I did, I wanted to look at it, and the image, if you stop it in frames, might suggest that he held the stick. But when you watch the video, it doesn't, like, it's not, oh my gosh, he held the stick. But when you look at that, you see the Phoenix guy, he's got his hand on the stick. And even the frame before that, he might have his hand a little bit on the stick too. Clark?
I think it's a call that's not going to be made. Whether or not you break it down frame by frame and all that stuff, in this scenario, that call's not being made. And like Brian said, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing.
How about you, Ro?
I was watching that game, and when it happened, I thought it was a penalty. I'm siding with Toronto here. I'm siding with Matthews. I looked at it because I've seen other calls that are less than that have been called where, a player just goes in barely with his stick and just taps somebody on the stick or between the hands, and arm goes up, and it's whatever they call it, holding or hooking, and I was surprised there wasn't a call. I think what happens with Matthews there, and probably with a lot of players, he should have kept going. He stopped. He should have kept going. Keep playing, until you hear a whistle. And a lot of players don't do that. They'll get frustrated and throw up their arms and go, why wasn't that called? And in the meantime, Arizona goes down the rink and scores. So yeah, I thought it was a penalty. They didn't call it, but he should have kept playing though. No whistle, keep playing. I
agree with you, Roland. He absolutely should have kept playing. Like there's a lot of times where you've seen players that stop to get mad at the referee, only to then see. I remember an infamous one years and years ago in the playoffs, and it was an offside, and it was a Montreal player. I forget his name, but he was sitting arguing with the ref on an offside, and the other team went in and scored in a playoff game, right? And it's just, you can't argue the call. You gotta keep playing. I agree. That was the mistake Matthews made. But I have
it was Kovalev. I remember Kovalev doing that with the Habs. Something happened and he just stopped. And then the other team went down and scored. And it's like, well, that's your fault.
I think the thing that was even more frustrating for Leafs fan is the guy that didn't get the call was the guy that ended up scoring the game. So a little salt in the wound there.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing when it came up to the NHL rule. It's NHL Rule 54, Section 7, restraining fouls. Holding, any action by a player that restrains or impedes the progress of an opposing player, whether or not he is in possession of the puck. Okay. Then you look at that and you watch the video and you kind of go, did that happen to Matthews? I think it did. I think there was a case there. There was a case, right? You keep reading and you think, well, minor, the minor penalty on this. A minor penalty shall be imposed on a player who holds an opponent by using his hands, arms, or legs. A player is permitted to use his arm in a strength move by blocking his opponent, provided he has body position and is not using his hands in a holding manner when doing so. Does that change your opinion on anything?
Guido, here's something I'll let you. Here's what I think. I think that rule probably holds, and if that happened when it was 5-on-5 play, the whistle probably would have blown. I think what you have to realize is refs have personality, and refs have a thing where they say, you know what, it's 3-on-3, and we're gonna bend it a little bit. We're gonna let them. You've heard the saying, and I've said it before. Let them play. So something that might be an infraction during the 60 minutes is not the same infraction, and we've seen the same thing in playoffs. That a penalty during the regular season may not be a penalty during the playoffs. There's a little bit of leniency in a hard-fought game. It's just the way the game is played, always has been, and hopefully, I hope it still continues to be played that way.
You're hearing it now already when it comes to some of the players. They're already talking about, hey, is it going to stay this way as we get into the playoffs? Are they going to call it the way they've been calling all this stuff all year, or is it going to start to change? I don't know why it has to change. I don't know why it matters. If you're 5-on-5 or you're 3-on-3 in OT, the rule is the rule.
But you know what? The thing that actually, I'm going to let Clark go in, but the thing I just wanted to say is refs, just like players, are all different, and you might 10 different refs, you might get 3 that call that, you might get 7 that don't. You might get 7 that call it, you might get 3 that don't. All the refs have different personalities, and the players also need to know what those personalities are and what kind of game those refs call. Same as baseball. Some umpire has a big wide strike zone, and some guy's got a mild strike zone. Is it exactly the same? Is it totally fair? No, but the player knows stepping up. This gives the pitcher a little bit of a wide berth. This one doesn't, and they adjust accordingly. That's part of it. You can't, unless you want to get robots out there reffing, you're going to have to live with some of the human nature of the calls that are made or not made.
So let me get this right. And Clark, I'm going to give it to you in a second, Clark. Let me get this right. I'm actually, in this scenario, supporting, I want to just be clear here. I'm the one supporting that a call should have been made for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Good for you. Doesn't make a difference.
No, I'm just saying.
Well, you're also the one saying the refs made the wrong call, which is entirely consistent with your usual stance.
I am. So go ahead, Clark.
So I kind of like what Brian was saying with the officials having different personalities, and the players have to know that. You also have to know as a player that late in the game, calls are going to be different. In the playoffs, calls are going to be different. I don't personally like it. I would love to see everything be called the same all the time. But at the same time, I'm a realist. I know that that's how those calls are going to go, and the players know that too.
Absolutely. I think Matthews got frustrated in the moment because he was impeded, and I think the fault was him stopping. But it's not that the ref didn't decide that game. I still contest the ref didn't decide that game.
It's inconsistent. Rolly, final thought on that.
Did you say? Wait a second, Guido. Did you say inconsistent?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to come back to that later.
No, I'm just going with my original thoughts there that he stopped, and I thought it was a penalty, but he shouldn't have stopped. That's about it. Yeah.
All right. Well, staying with Auston Matthews. Boy, during the Heritage Classic there, I was sending the text, and I said, I think halfway through it, I said, well, we'll have a few topics that we're going to talk about the next time we get together. unless the Toronto Maple Leafs provide us with some additional amazing type of event. And boy, they don't disappoint, let me tell you. They do not disappoint. So there it is.
Throw the bum out of the game.
Yep.
Throw them out.
Game misconduct.
Yeah.
Yep. What do you think, Guido?
I said 10 games.
And that's consistent.
You know what? I'm waiting to have this discussion with you about consistency. Because
Wait a second. Let me give you some facts.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last year, how many cross-checking suspensions do you think there were in the 2021 season?
I'm sure you're going to tell me. How many?
1.
Okay.
1 suspension, 7 fines. 1 game suspension. In the past, in previous years, probably 2 games, 3 games. So now all of a sudden, because it's Auston Matthews of the Maple Leafs, it should be a 10-game suspension. Where's your argument on consistency with the Department of Player Safety?
Yeah, no problem. So here's the thing on consistency. They've been consistently wrong all this time is my point. They've been consistently wrong for a long, long time. And what you see is going on there should never go on there. So I've been calling for stuff like this to have 10-game suspensions or more for a long, long time, because the 2-game suspension that Auston Matthews got does absolutely nothing. And I forget the fact that Darlene, Darlene got interviewed. He said, yeah, it's part of hockey. I'm okay. It doesn't matter if he's okay or if he had 3 vertebrae in his spine and his neck shattered from that play. You look at the velocity, and I tried to slow this down to capture really the velocity. You look at the velocity with which Matthews went at him with that stick. The stick is bending, okay? That stick is bending. He's coming off his feet to do it, and it's right into the neck, okay? He's angry. He's got a toe dipped in the moment of premeditation. He's got a toe dipped in it. To me, 10 games, and that becomes the standard, the first standard. And then you increment. Hey, you do that again, or you're a second, you're going to 20 games. You're going to 40, and then you're done. And I don't care who it is. Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, Carey Price, Brendan Gallagher.
What about Jonathan Drouin? What if it's Jonathan Drouin?
Don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. 2021,
Canadiens forward Jonathan Drouin was fined $5,000 by the league for cross-checking Tyler Seguin.
10 games.
Drouin continued to cross-check Seguin in the head as Seguin laid on the ice, and he got a $5,000 fine.
Yeah, it's a
Where
joke.
Where was Guido in up in arms about that particular penalty? I never heard a peep about it.
I'm telling you right now, I give you the same thing. Minimum 10 games on anything like that. Anything with intent, 10 games.
But you can't just all of a sudden, as Department of Player Safety, say, you know what, we're going to change it right now. You can't say, here's what we've done in the past, and everyone else has gotten a $500, $5,000 fine or 1 game. But now, because some people think it was a violent cross-check, and I would argue less violent than Drouin cross-checking a guy in the head while he's already on the ice. And then we're going to say, we're going to give that 10 games now. You can't just change your mind on a flash.
If you apply the past logic that they would have applied, 2 games falls perfectly consistently in line with it, but it's wrong. It should be 10 games.
But Guido, to your own point, it meets your criteria of consistency.
No, but it's the wrong consistency.
No,
so
you can't say consistent's good here, but consistency is no good here. No, that's ridiculous.
Right. Okay, so let me.
Clark, I want to hear from Clark.
I don't want to go down this path, but I'm just going to say one name and then I'm going to pass it to Clark. Logan Mailloux, and then consistency. Right? Let's not even go there. But okay, Clark, talk about the Auston Matthews thing.
So I mean, I mean, we talked about this in our little group chat prior to the show quite a bit, and I agree with Brian here, and actually, to a certain extent, I agree with both of you guys that if the NHL wants to set its standard, if they want to say doing this is 10 games, okay, sweet. But they're not going to do that in the middle of the season. They're not going to do that right now and say, you know what, all that other stuff that's been going on this year, we haven't thrown out, we thrown out two suspensions greater than 2 games or something like that all year. But right now it's 10 games. That's a horrible look. That is making stuff up on the fly. And even if it might be the rule as it should be, it's still not the way you've been doing it, and it would look awful. So they're never going to do that. If they want to come back next summer and say from now on and pulling this stuff is 10 games and it's gonna be that way every time, sweet, go for it. Everybody's got the expectations set. I mean, that's great. And then the first time it happens, they'll call it 2 games because it's the NHL we're talking about here. But this stuff, it's cross-checking in particular around the net is always called less. You can get away with stuff in front of the net that you can't get away with at center ice. And no, this is not this does not belong in hockey. This is not the right play by Auston Matthews or anything. But it's always that is the consistency there. Cross-checking around the net has always been treated lesser. And I think the penalty, the suspension, all that reflects that.
Roll, you've been quiet.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with what Clark just said. You can't do it right now. It's just something they've never done. So I think next year, if they wanted to increase it by a certain amount, then fine. I'm surprised they suspended him for 2 games. He didn't call anything during the game. But then later when they brought up that he was going to have a hearing, I thought, he's going to get something, either 1 or 2 games. And Guido, you actually said that too when we were just chatting back and forth. You said he'll get 2 games.
Yeah.
So if they want to do it next year, great. I'm just wondering, and even Matthews, is this the first time he's been suspended? I think it is, right?
Yeah. I think it puts his Lady Bing hopes in
That's
jeopardy.
okay. He'll still get MVP and the Rocket Richard. So 2 out of 3.
Speaking of the Rocket Richard, right? So the Rocket Richard, he might have whacked somebody with his stick this way back in the day, but he did it for cultural reasons. He was carrying a province on his back and trying to change.
There's always a good reason for Habs to break the rules.
I'm just saying that the times were a little
make
different.
it right, Quade.
It wasn't.
He did it heroically.
That's it. I'm taking it off. That's it. I'm done with that. It makes me think wrong. Oh my God, it hurts.
I think, in fact, if you look at the suspension, I think Roland touched on this. I think most people, if you went with precedent, would have expected, and the fact that it's his first suspension, would have expected 1 game or a fine. I think 2 games in this suspension is actually excessive, based on precedent.
Yeah. And that's, sorry guys, that's really where my focus was. Is that I get it. I knew it was going to be 2 games. But I've always wanted these incidents to be more. You go back to all that stuff, and I don't care who the player is. I've always wanted these incidents to be a little bit more. All right.
Now, Guy, I think if that was like Tom Wilson from Washington, you'd see more games.
Absolutely,
yeah, you would see more games.
Or back in the day, if it was a Chris Pronger type of thing, yeah, you might see a few more games, right? Or Brad Marchand. But should we, based on the person, because we didn't talk about that part, should we? No. The infraction is the infraction. I don't care who you are. It's incremental. Start at 10.
You said right off the top, though,
30.
the first time you do it 10 games, second time 20. So the person does matter. It matters if you're a repeat offender.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that the tolerance or the punishment is much higher, right? two games is nothing. Like, it's inconsequential. Now I say 2 games is nothing, and I wanted to touch on this before the Tom Brady thing, and we don't have a lot of time, but the Toronto Maple Leafs are 2 points away from dropping down into a wild card spot. Does this hurt them, losing Auston Matthews? I mean, their goaltending's been atrocious. I think they have to score 5 or 6 goals to try and win a game the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, they pretty much spot 4 before they
Right.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it's exciting to watch because they're going to score 6 goals, but yikes, like going into
it's the old Edmonton. They're playing with the old Edmonton Oiler mentality way back in the day. Sure,
Yeah,
let them
without the
score
same-
5 as long as we score 6, right?
Right. But you look at that group and you go, when does Marner and Matthews and like when do they disappear, right? Bunting has been a little bit of a surprise, I guess, but when do those guys disappear? And we know when they disappear, in the first round of the playoffs, right? If they make it with their goaltending.
Just on Bunting, I caught the tail end of that game, and kudos to him. He came back and he showed a little pep when they started roughhousing his partner there. So I never expected that out of Bunting, but
I think he mauled. I think there was some mauling going on there, or some.
The game got a little out of hand towards the end.
Yeah.
Okay, we typically go back to hockey, but today we're gonna go to football. Tom Brady.
I'm deflated, like a Tom Brady football.
Yeah, I was like, man, somebody else I have to put on my do not like list again. I thought I had crossed somebody off, thinking, oh, I don't have to not like Tom Brady this year. I have to not like Tom Brady this year.
At first, I thought it was a joke. When I saw it, I said, "No, it's somebody's pulling some stuff here." But yeah, I don't know. 2 months kind of changed his mind, and he already started missing it.
He really didn't like being at home.
I guess something must have happened at home, or he's going, you know what? I'm going to start practicing again and going to the weight room and doing my stuff and back to football. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
He was retired for 40 days, I think.
Yeah, and look, think about all of the going away tributes and all the stuff he got in that.
Well, wasn't it you texted us and you said some guy bought his football for $500,000?
Yeah. The last touchdown he threw went for auction, and he paid $500,000 for it.
Okay, guys, should he not buy that football back? Should he not call the guy up and say, hey man, I'm sorry?
Oh, he should, but do you expect him to?
No.
He won't.
Or something. Give the guy some tickets, or like, I don't know. Like, and maybe he will. But if he does, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
I'm curious if he's going to suffer, because I remember when Gretzky retired, and maybe somebody sent it. He goes, the year I retired, I scored 9 goals. He goes, that used to be a good weekend for me, and I knew it was time to retire. Right? I'm wondering if Brady's going to have a lousy season. Like, he's going to come back and he's going to tarnish his legacy.
You know what's funny though? He's still led the league in a lot of categories. Yeah. Maybe that's what is keeping, or he had thoughts about it. Maybe I should continue. I had such a good year. Like it's amazing.
He had such a good year 2 months ago too.
We talked about Brady though. Like, when you think of Brady's legacy, yeah, you think of the championships, but there's a bag full of weird stuff. Like, what is his legacy? I mean, to the fan who followed him and loved him, yeah, that's all those. But to the casual fan, I don't know. Like, his legacy's already kind
7 Super Bowls. 7 Super Bowls.
You can't argue with that. I know, but I'm just saying, like,
it's winning. That's what it is.
Wherever
some strange rules, some deflated balls, some like all these other weird things. Like,
but kind of like he's that story. Like, where was it? Was he drafted like 161st or something? Like, he was way down in the draft.
Way down, yeah.
And like, for a guy that with such initial low expectations to achieve what he's done, there's no There's no arguing with that. That's incredible, right?
Yeah, yeah. He wasn't a physical specimen either, right? It just seemed like I'm not gonna say average, but what is he, 6'3", 6'4", but he wasn't that physical specimen of a QB that comes out today, right? That you look at them and go, oh my God, you look at the quarterbacks that come out now, it's like, wow, compared to Brady. But I think it's all up here. It's up in the head. And
Does he retire?
Controlling the game.
Does he retire at the end of next year again and then unretire one more time? Or is he around for a couple of seasons?
I don't know. You mean, is he going to be like the Who? The Eagles, the last concert.
It's the final last concert.
We don't know.
Over a few times for the Eagles.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was done with Tom Brady. I think we did an episode where I said Tom Brady retired. He's not retired. Remember, because he tweeted, "I'm retired." Then no, that was wrong. I didn't retire. No, he's retired, and just keeps. It's like a nightmare. It's like you wake up out of one of those dreams that's reoccurring, and you say, "Did he retire? Did he not retire? Am I dreaming this?"
Didn't one of his favorite players?
Apparently, he's
Gronk
got
sign with Buffalo. Didn't Gronk sign with Buffalo?
Oh, did he? I don't know. I didn't follow that.
Maybe he saw all the money that Rodgers got in signing with Green Bay and wants to come back.
That was crazy money.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
He's seeing green. Darlene is seeing stars, and Matthews is seeing the bench. He's seeing the pine. But everybody's seeing something here on. It's not the ref, but it is the ref. You got Brian, you got Roland, you got Clark. It's Guido. We'll be back, but we hope you enjoyed this show.